I don't have all the panaceas on happy, and I'll have to transpose happy and healthy as interchangeable words. Got 5 topics. They overlap so that I can get through them more quickly. And I've also dotted this PowerPoint with web links and documents so that as I touch on the theme and move on, given my time, we can follow them along. So the first topic is knowing what's good for you doesn't mean it's necessarily easy to do. And that picture in the bottom actually comes from a website called It's Broken. And I can't help myself, every time I look at that, I end up laughing. But yeah, that's who we are. So to continue on the theme of a few graphs, just quickly to bring us up to speed. When you look at our society, once upon a time tobacco was our, I feel I should burst into song, but I won't, sorry. So once upon a time tobacco was one of our big community illnesses that we were really working hard, I guess, to change our behaviour on. Now, surprisingly, it's overweight and obesity that is one of our biggest problems. And when you combine that with physical inactivity, the burden of health on our society is actually from sitting around on our bums eating the wrong food, which is fantastic for us as community and town planners because we can fix that a whole lot easier. Another quick graph to bring us into the healthy thinking is that when you look at what we do as Queenslanders, this graph in particular, it shows that yes, 50 to 60% of us are overweight or obese, but very interestingly, as only half of us eat enough fruit in a day, and only as little as 1 in 10 of us eats enough vegetables in a day. Now, if I made you stand up right now and ask you if you got your 30 minutes of exercise yesterday, and if you got your 2 and your 5, I think that in this room there'd be a lot of people who said, yes, I did, but we're all guilty of skipping out on that occasionally, and myself included, and I knew I was going to ask this question. It plays on my mind a lot. So, the good old Courier Mail and the Mackay Daily Paper actually have summed this up so well for me that I can't help but keep bringing out this slide. But basically, lifestyle diseases are the #1 cost in health in Queensland. We're flushing in Cairns around $95 to $93 million in the next decade down the toilet. What can we do with that money if we save it? I've got some great ideas. I'm sure we all do. Basically, the population that we're putting into that Cairns-based hospital is the equivalent of 2 months of people a year, and the equivalent of the population of Mossman, and say 2 months of hospital beds a year. Look at me, Tony Abbott. Look at me, Campbell Newman. I've just made one of the biggest changes to our state health budget. There's no need to worry about finding a new hospital for Mareeba. So many problems are solved if we can create a place where we can get ourselves off our bums and eating the right food. In health terms, they call that supportive environments. And yes, the cost for a stay could be $24,000, but really losing a limb is also a pretty big cost. So pulling this into the supportive environment, before I do that, I also wanted to just point out on those previous slides, the Grattan Institute at the end of last month brought out a great report on social cities, and in there's a whole lot more graphs about how we as community members report our health based on our social interactions and our accessibility. And talking to my hairdresser, she gave me this great statistic that says that a healthy community is one where you've spoken to somebody within 10 minutes of walking out your front door. And if you use that as a benchmark for how your community works as far as being social and healthy, it's a very honest reminder. Now, those girls down there in the bottom right-hand corner are actually one of the summary images for this for me. And when I think back to when I was at uni with you, Professor Lowe, in the olden days for me, we spent a lot of time planning for healthy waterways. We still do it. All our corporate documents, all our policies were all about saving the reef, having healthy waterways, and that's fantastic. But somewhere along the way, I've realised as a town planner, when we start out, we're looking at the whole environment. We fancy ourselves as being good social planners, good environmental planners, good community planners. You're agreeing with me down here in the front table. We're all wishing you were town planners. Good built environment planners, but in the end, what we end up doing really is moderating that land use. And somewhere over the time, I think that for myself has been a lesser and lesser emphasis on the people. But I think in reality, if we plan for healthy people, we actually will have a healthy environment. And that's what the supportive environments are about, finding a way to help us get off our bums and getting out and being the good people. Point number 2, moving very quickly if I can. A healthy community is a low carbon community. Hopefully you're all seeing it the way that I'm seeing it. And this is one of my favourite sentences, that you get, in the healthy community, you get a legacy of improved community health, improved environment, improved quality of life and improved infrastructure. Why this is important for this audience here, as leaders or potential leaders, people who wish to influence leaders, is so clear right now with our new political environment, with the great turnover in state government and with our upcoming turnover in about 50 out of 75 mayors are likely to change. 20 of our 75 mayors are not even going to be running. And we're also looking at a very big change in local government, elected representatives. So as communities, as leaders, as people who want change, I think that if we can take our message for a low carbon community, for sustainable cities, and pair it up with as many other things as we can, we're going to hit quite a few marks. And that's the objectives of this presentation, is to give us the things to take to our community leaders. You do get benefits from a sustainable and a healthy community for people shopping locally, be it because they are buying fruit and veg at the local markets, or be it because they rode their bike on the bike path that we put in for them. You get positive public relations opportunities, which we can all do with. Strengthening of intergovernment and community relationships, which is a very important part of a healthy community. And here it is, most importantly, you get to achieve a range of corporate and community objectives. Everybody's out there trying to be sustainable in their community plans, in their corporate plans, in their business plans. Everybody wants to be environmentally friendly, to build communities and to deliver good economic development. Planning and looking for a sustainable low-carbon community is the same thing as looking for a healthy community. We pair these up, and there's a lot of funding to be had, particularly from the health department. So here it is for the town planners and for us as community agitators. 1/3 of physical inactivity can be prevented through environmental intervention alone. What does that mean? It means good level, community level design, which we've already talked about with Paul just before, providing something for us to walk to or ride to, the polycentric city. Give me a park, a shop, a school that I can walk to, give me a safe environment that I can walk to it, and I'll be out there doing it. Good street level design can increase physical activity by 35%. If you're out there walking your dog tomorrow morning, think about where you go in terms of where the footpaths are, and everywhere where a footpath increases, the number of people increase. I accidentally misread a statistic that said that putting in footpaths increases people walking by 80%. It's not true. It's 50%, which is still fantastic. But just have a look at where you walk when you walk, and picture yourself with a pram and a toddler and a dog, and yes, footpaths make a lot of sense. Having access to places for physical activity increases physical activity. I have downloaded onto my phone the beep test, 20 metres, run backwards and forwards. I have to drive to a place where I can do it. It defeats the purpose, and it just smashes me every single time, So, again, when you look at these photos down the bottom, we've got the good old fat guy in the middle with his dog on the treadmill. It's a supportive environment. All we have to do, really, is help ourselves be better. We need to, if we can get this guy out of his lounge room, we can stop him driving his car to the shop, he can put a path in and he can walk his dog, he can interact in the community. That's the bad scenario. On either side of that, we've got 2 excellent examples of the walking school bus, which took a long time to get going in our community, but working really well on the northern beaches, and it takes a lot of energy, that's a fact, but it's an awesome thing. It helps us as a council and a community prioritise where we put our footpaths, where we put our shade. It starts to build a continuous healthy community, it builds a low carbon community, it builds a connected community. And on the right hand side is a good old example from Gladstone. It's a painted on decal that says this is a healthy choice. And they have that out the front of the school, and you collect the decals as you walk along. It's like, yes, we walked past 4 of those today on the way to school. We've got 4 points. Kids love it. They have them in the supermarkets at the furthest car parks. Something like that costs no money at all, gets the kids thinking, gets the mums and dads thinking, and the really excellent outcome from both of those, the walking school environment examples, is that the more and more people walk, the safer and safer it becomes to let your kids go by themselves. And again, it builds on itself. So ultimately you end up with a low carbon community without even trying. Anyone who knows me knows that I'm not a big fan of walking, but I do like bike riding, but even I can agree that every journey begins and ends with walking. This is my solution to the low carbon economy. And the subtitle for this presentation is "You Can Save the World with a Good Path and a Garden." So, again, lobbying ourselves now with our newly elected council. What are we prioritising over our new expanded highways or our new bike paths? Walking is the cheapest form of transport. It's affordable, it's maintainable, it's great for all economic groups. It shifts us away from the patterns that we used to have or have developed in driving a car, and puts environments back on a sustainable scale, ties in again nicely with what we've already heard this morning, Peter, or just this afternoon. And it leads to more social interaction, physical fitness, and diminished social problems. Diminished. This time I'm going to make everybody stand up quick because I'm on the time here. And I'm going to ask you, because this was a public holiday month, just think about, since the 1st of April, did you catch a bus to work? Sit down if you did. Sydney people included. Catch a train, you're allowed to catch a train too. So no one took public transport to work. If you did, please sit down. Great, you're winners. Did you ride or walk to work? Please sit down. Oh, I love this group. That's fantastic. Now, of those of you who are sitting down, who walked or rode to a shop or to visit a friend? Perfect. Oh, yeah, you're winners. Oh, good. Some people did both. Fantastic. So please sit down. It's all good. The thing is, it's not your fault. You know what's good for you. You want to do it. We're the leaders in this field. It's hard. So, in terms of coming back to it, creating supportive environments so that we can do the things that we value and so that we can actually help everybody get out there and do it. And now, to tie back in with what Peter was saying, basically 80% of the trips that we do are not actually even work-related. If you think back to how it was with Mum and Dad, we were the one-car family. Dad drove that car to work, Mum walked to the shop or caught the train to the shop. We actually rode or walked to school. God love us, it wasn't that long ago, I'm sure. So what I've done on the bottom there is included two really awesome things. If you've never done a walkability audit, get out there and have a go. It changes your focus on your community. You find the dumbest things, where the footpath stops before the pedestrian crossing, where the sign for the pedestrian crossing hasn't been moved but the pedestrian crossing was, where the pram ramps outside the front of the hospital are so steep that a person in a wheelchair can't get up them, where the bike lane outside the library stops and you go smashing into cars as you cross the intersection. It's fantastic what you find when you wear the audit. This is one of my themes about you don't have to do it all on your own. You get the walkability audit, you get the Heart Foundation walking group, your local community group, Mums with Bubs group, to do the audit. You get the data, you take it to your counsellor, you get the outcomes you want because you've got the evidence. Also in there's a really awesome 15-page checklist for active communities. That's a good one for when you're making comments on the new planning scheme. It's got a great list of things. Look them up any other way. There's a million different walkability audits. They're fantastic. The West Australian Government had one of the best websites on that, and God love them, they've changed it. And all the fun stuff's gone, and there's a lot of policies now. So, again, no mystery. It's not our fault that we actually didn't get to walk or ride to work or the shops this week. It's the town planner's fault, because we've gone from a really nice grid city with little destinations that you can walk or ride to a great big fat wiggly worm subdivision where by the time you've walked down to the bus stop or the shop, you've already walked a kilometre out of that cul-de-sac. It's not our fault, but we can fix it. Also, when you look at that top pattern, having a grid pattern, if you haven't thought it through, allows you to have an adaptation of use over time. You can go from having houses to units to shops, to work at home, small office, home office environments. It allows for parking out the back, parking out the front. It allows for a change. When you get the wiggly worm subdivisions, it's a whole lot more difficult to get an evolution in patterns, and it's really hard to imagine in some of those that we'll ever see density, let alone public transport. This one links into my last one about social media and using the internet. Have you tried the Google Walk Score yet? If you haven't, beware, it is really a little bit daggy. It's strangely addictive, you can't stop playing with it. This is one example of Long Street in Moorabool, or Shane Street in Moorabool actually, which is chosen by me for a number of reasons, none the least of which is its low socio-economic base, and I have a great presentation that fills out that, but the point is that what the Google Walk Score does is it tells you how walkable your suburb is by category. And when you think about where they are, those people are within 300 metres of Stockland Elva, which is the blue patch on the right-hand side there. But they can't get there, one, because we've got a big fat set of creeks in the way, or environmental corridor, with or without paths. And they also have not very much mix of land use in that subdivision at all. So wearing my town planner eyes, there's two things I can do: improve the pedestrian connectivity through to across Mulgrave Road to Stockland, and at the same time try and increase the number of destinations that my community can actually use within there. There's a community centre now, we can put a shop in, we can put a little daycare centre, just a range of things, a community garden to get people up and walking. And if you do know that area at all, the irony of that is that instead of having the closest shopping centre being Stockland, it's actually rain trees all the way over at Festival Fair. It does not make sense. We've done that ourselves. That's an urban renewal award-winning project. There's always one more thing. It's not easy, even our best intentions, there's always something else we can do to improve. So happy news. I'm watching my time. Am I? How am I going? Flying along. The cool thing about this is you can save the world with just a bike path and or a footpath. We can actually, Peter, live on less oil a year. Thank you very much for asking the question. And in doing so, we'll get some really good outcomes. Firstly, when I look around the room here, even before you come, you have a pretty good idea of those of us who are going to come to the same things. It's a lot of enthusiastic people, a lot of the same faces, a lot of people working in the industry and ready to go. What I'm always wondering myself is how do we connect more with other people who are not in the room today? How do we deliver those messages and get everybody up and fighting for the, I guess, for low carbon economies or whatever it is, a good community? Walking actually does promote a sense of local identity, and it does actually lead to improved community involvement, which is something that I personally value a lot. Some sad statistics which come from the Graduate Institute is that every 10 minutes of commuting actually allows for 10% less social connections. There's a Google I've got coming up in a minute to have a look after Yen Tren. She's a Brisbane urban designer who's actually come up with a concept which was the social seat on the bus. Put a sticker behind the window, says, if you sit here, I'm going to talk to you. And so there's ways to make people get out there and communicate with each other, even on a bus. The other thing, which is no great surprise, is that 10% of Australian families spend more time commuting than they do with their children. And again, the happy news for us, looking for ways to do change and reduce our carbon footprint, quite simply is 10, 30, 50. 10% of trips are within 1 kilometre. 1 kilometre, a very comfortable walk. We can start to really target those people and those environments to make them walker friendly. Put the footpath in, put the shade trees up, put the signs up so you know where you're going. 30% of trips within 3 kilometres, 50% within 5 kilometres. Make those places good and healthy for walking and riding bikes. We're out there doing it. We're bumping into each other. We're having a social time. And when you look at what Cairns has done in the last 5 years alone, ticks in boxes all over the place on improving the pedestrian connectivity. Right, here we go. Now we're fast. Yen Tren, Brisbane urban designer, got some great things. In talking about putting in some things to give people a destination to walk to, it doesn't have to be permanent. Some of the really fun stuff that's going on now are the pop-up cafes and the parking days where we turn parking spaces into parks, or pop-up cafe around a park that's already there. The active school travel program I've spoken about, bring destinations to where people live, is what Peter spoke about. I've kind of touched on it. It's basic town planning. People attract people. We as a community should be absolutely outraged at the shit that gets delivered by big supermarkets in the name of providing us with a service that we need. There's so many other ways to do it that really can lead to good communities. Gardening communities or community gardens. I don't have very long now, 3 minutes apparently. I spent a lot of time looking at community gardens, and how we do it around the state and around Australia. I'm no expert in growing stuff myself, but I continue to try. I think we all know some of the basic stuff about the prevalence of supermarkets in our neighbourhood. It allows you to change your mind on the way home and say, oh, I actually really do feel like broccoli soup tonight. I'm going to duck in and grab the mushrooms and the brock and have a healthy tea. If you don't have a supermarket nearby, you end up eating something else. And dare I say it, the easiest thing to access actually is the McDonald's on the way home. Farmers markets also increase people's access to healthy food. I've got some great links to a whole range of websites on that. But what I wanted to just talk to you a little bit about in terms of community gardens, they actually are a big flavour of the month. They're really, really important because they provide us with a community as a place to have demonstrations on solar panels, on things like permaculture. You find out what to grow today. It's a great way to buy some seedlings that are locally relevant. The other side of that is that they are a real challenge for us. They drain community groups of their energy. You can get a lot of funding to start up, but you can't get the funding to continue. So if you can't do a community garden, think about other ways. Communities are developing new ways. The internet's there. It's a brilliant way to set up a artificial community garden which provides with the recipes, the blogs, the discussion panels on what's going on. Down on the bottom left-hand side there is 2 different ways that they're doing it in Gladstone and in Innisfail. We're actually just rewarding people for providing healthy food through the Bite Award or through the Healthy Choices Initiative. A whole range of useful links on different approaches to community gardens, farmers markets. Tying in the edible landscape with the walking trail is my favourite option, so that when I'm out there walking I can pick the kumquats or the lychees or the mint or the pineapples or the apples or whatever it is, take it home and get inspired. The last bit of this presentation, social media, give it a go. You don't have to do it on your own. I've already touched on that through things like using the walkability checklist, but also you can use the internet. And mostly importantly, really, is celebrate your wins. We have really come such a long way very quickly, as again Peter pointed out to us, in some of the things we've done. It's important to just shout it from the rooftop when you've done something well. And if you're not sure who's doing it well, aside from some of the stuff we've done here in Cairns, have a look at Innisfail, which has pretty much, I think, led the way since it was an Agenda 21 or local Agenda 21 city back in the early 90s, late 80s. Right through to winning a national award last year for healthy communities. They've got a community garden with a fitness trail running past it. Signage and maps, one of the most important things for getting people out there and walking. Times have changed. Now there's an app for just about everything, including Cairns City Council's heritage site. Full credit to Council for that too, because now not only can I connect with my community, but so too can the visitors. And you know what? It's still new, this stuff, and our council is right there doing it. Have you used Twitter? Can you just show me your hands if you have? Yep. Oh, good. That's like maybe 20%, which is fantastic. Oh, you're not. You're just waving at me. My time's up. Okay, so quickly, you don't actually have to have a Twitter account, but here's a really nice way to catch up on what's going on. You just type in Twitter feed, type in CAFNEC Twitter feed. You can find out who's presenting today. There's a couple of great links on some other things. I also did Cairns tweet, find out a little bit about what's going on locally, and because I've got a bias towards town planning, and I can't read them all now, but there's, the Planning Institute of Australia Twitter has some really good feed on COAG and what it means for our cities. So you can look that up on your internet or your smartphone. Do give it a go. It's quite surprising. And if you're not sure, start by looking at the footy tweets, because my goodness, you only get 180 characters and people can say some very weird stuff with not too many words. In my closing presentation, I actually have included the Planetising News Wire. It sends you out a blog twice a week with relevant articles. I thought twice about putting on that because it's usually quite planet biased, and I sometimes think we're a bit negative. But in today's email alone, the articles were: how much is a tree worth to a city? The cost of knocking one down compared to the price of building one, and it's an argument that we want to have. It's a good one. Pedestrianology, 101, the science of walking in social cities. A farm grows in Brooklyn, the largest rooftop garden in America, 100,000 square feet. There is traffic schools for bicycle violations proposed in San Francisco. What determines bicycle shared usage? Study links childhood obesity to walking and access to healthy food. a car-free LA. It's not as tough as it sounds. So that's today in one little newsletter. Too much information for sure. The other blog that's, or newswire that's one of my favourites is the American Association of Landscape Architects called The Dirt, and it is always positive. That's the one that I was going to recommend, but I recommend both. This headline here, there's an app for that, actually is from the Planet iZine today, and if one of my favourites is the Sun Surveyor one, where you can actually put in where you are and have a look at the azimuth of the sun over time, and that is time. In summary, there we are again. Anna's going to put this onto the CAFNet website. I try very hard on my website to keep my favourite websites on there for other people to find. That's who I am. There's my summary. Knowing what's good for you doesn't mean it's easy to do. We know that. Planning for a healthy environment will give you healthy people as well, and vice versa. Walking is the way to go. So is gardening. You can solve the world. Have a look at the river in the Kuchang River in South Korea. What's that but a bike path with a garden on it? And get in there and use that social media, because it's the way to go. And again, Anna's going to put this onto her webpage, but I've filled that back page with as many things as I could think of that were relevant. And if you want to have a chat, please give me a call. Thanks.